Alright, the final thing that we're going to be talking about in this series of lectures is the actual box itself, and this has to do with how big the box actually is. So we're coming back to the lesson that we were working on a couple lectures ago, and we've already been styling some of this. The only element that we haven't really styled is our OL tag, so let's go ahead and let's create style for that. I'm going to go ahead and create a CSS style for the ordered list. I'm going to go ahead and set the font size of my ordered list to 0.75 ems. I'm using the same size that I used on my paragraph. We'll go ahead and we'll put a border around the ordered list. So I'm just going to use the shorthand method of styling. I will need a colon there though, of just defining the size, the style, and then the color. And let's go ahead, well, let's just leave it at this for now. I'm going to save this and just show you what's going on here. So you can see that here is my ordered list. The font now matches the font size in the paragraphs, and the border has been turned on. You can see that there is no padding or margin settings set yet because we haven't set those. So let's go ahead and set those next, and let's also set the size of this box so that it matches the other boxes that we're using in our document. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to set the width of the box, and we'll go ahead and set the width to, we'll use a fixed value here, because in a little bit we're going to be using fixed values so that I can illustrate something, so I might as well just set this to a fixed value. And let's go ahead and let's set our margin setting. So I'm going to go ahead and set margin, and we'll just do margin all the way around, and we'll use a margin of 20 pixels. I'm going to save my file and I'll refresh in the browser, and you can see what I get. It's kind of interesting what happens when you deal with margin and padding on lists, and this is true with either ordered lists or unordered lists. You can see that when I set the margin, it does in fact push the box over 20 pixels, just like it did with the elements that are shown above. But what happens to my little numbers of my ordered list? Well, they get thrown outside of the box, and this is the same thing would happen if this was an unordered list. The bullets would be thrown outside of the box. So if you want to go ahead and have these be inside the box, which most of the time you will, you're going to actually use padding to do that. So if I come back in here and I set the padding, and I'm just going to go ahead and set the padding on the left only, and I'm going to use 20 pixels. If I save and if we refresh, you're going to now notice that the numbers jump inside of the box and we get results that we would expect. The margin is still controlling the layout of the box. Like if I come back here and I just make my margin 0, so if we get rid of that 20 pixels and we refresh, you can see that it pushes the whole box over to the left. But when you only set margin on list items, you will go ahead and you will get the fact that the actual bullets or the numbers or whatever you're using on your list are going to get left outside of the box. So if you want to move them as well, you're going to have to use padding in conjunction with margin. And that's definitely important to know, since you'll be able to want to keep your lists in line. A lot of times you'll have your lists be more indented anyways, so you would probably want to push those over. I might even want to set the left padding to something like 60 pixels, so I have a really nice indent on those particular items. They actually indent more. And I could do that actually with margin or padding, but just remember, if you do it with margin, the numbers are going to stay outside of the box or pushed away from the box. If you do it with padding, they travel with it. The last thing that I want to cover is the actual size of the box. How big is the box? So let's use pixel values instead of percent values to illustrate this point. I already have the width of my unordered my ordered list to 600 pixels. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set the width for my paragraph to 600 pixels and the width of my header to 600 pixels as well. So I'll save and I'll refresh, and you can see that all of the elements that are part of my page now have 600 pixels. This is a fixed value, so as I resize the page, nothing is going to move. Now you may notice that my ordered list is kind of shoved over here. And even though it's set to 600 pixels, it doesn't really look like 600 pixels. If we get out, let me get out my rulers again here. If we get out our rulers and we take a quick peek, so if I put my ruler right at the edge of the box right here, you can see that the size of this box is more along the lines of 662. So what the heck is happening? We specifically said, hey, we want this to be 600 pixels. Why is it 662? Well, basically, when you set margin and padding and actually border, you're actually increasing the overall space of the elements, occupy over and above the specified value. So because we have a width of 600 pixels, it also is going to add our padding. Remember, padding is on the inside, so that gives us 660. And then I set my border to 1 pixels all the way around, so I actually have 1 pixel on the right and 1 pixel on the left, which is going to give me 662. So if I want to go ahead and ensure that the width of my ordered list is exactly 600 pixels, I actually have to go ahead and I have to take 600 and I have to subtract 62, which is going to give me 538. So if I make the width 538 of my ordered list and reload my page, now this becomes exactly 600 pixels. If I grab my ruler and we go ahead and we place this and we measure, you can see that my box is now exactly 600 pixels. Okay, so I've changed the width of the box to be exactly, which probably means that the other boxes are not 600 pixels, and they're not because we were using padding on those as well. So if we measure, they're going to be a little bit over 600 pixels. It looks like they're around 613, 614, something like that. So if we want to set all of these things, if we're working with a web page where we have tight fixed layout and every pixel needs to be accounted for, you need to make sure that you add the padding and or border thickness of the elements, and you either subtract those from your overall width amount so that you are going to be assured that the box width value is going to keep the dimensions that you want to use. So let's go ahead and let's make those adjustments over here. If we look here in our paragraph, we set the width to be 600 pixels, but we have padding of 5. So on the right and left, 5 plus 5 would be 10. Okay, and then we're using a 2 pixel border. So that's basically 14. So if we take 600 and subtract 14, we actually have a width of 586. And up here in our H3, we have padding of 5. Right and left padding of 5 plus 5 is 10, so we can go ahead and subtract 10 right off the bat, plus 5 pixels on the right and 5 pixels on the left, so that's going to be another 10. So this is going to have a width of 580 pixels. So now if we save and we refresh and reload our page, you can see that all of my elements now line up in the exact same place. I know that these are all 600 pixels wide because I did the math and I made sure that the dimensions all added up. So even though the width value of my different tags are not set to be the same, this one is 538, this one is 586, and this one is 580, they are displaying as 600 pixels, and that's because I have to add the width, any padding on the right and left, and any border. And remember, you need to double these things because I have padding all the way around, so it's on the right and the left. Border all the way around, it's on the right and the left. So that basically should hopefully clarify how big a box actually is, and you should understand the box model pretty well after this last series of lectures.